Thank you for tuning in to RTM Nation Online, where we believe that you will receive the abundance of peace, prosperity, security, stability, health, healing, and truth. If you would like to learn more about the ministry, click the link below. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Now let's get into the message.
You know, a few weeks back, we concluded our lesson about our friend Jacob. And for our lesson with Jacob, we covered a few basic points. And those points are this. There are three of them that I'm going to mention right now. There may have been some others, but the major ones were this. Point number one. You have to have fight in life. Specifically, there has to be fight in you. When life punches you, you must punch back. Don't take it lying down. If you have a broken heart because of something that has happened to you, don't you go in your room and close the shades and become a recluse. Get out. Get out among people with expectation, people with joy, people who have vision, people who love seeing your smiling face. Get out there and you exercise your life in the exact spot that life hurt you. Exercise that spot and allow God to come into your life and teach that broken heart how to love life again. A second item. Be honest with yourself. There is a name that God calls you, and that name represents the real you. Not necessarily the person that we see, but the person that God sees all the time. If I were to say it a little different, it would be like this. If when you leave the house, the person that you represent to the world as self is wearing a mask, take time to introduce yourself to the person behind the mask. 3, put down self-effort. Allow our Heavenly Father to help us. God put it this way to Zechariah. He said, Zechariah, it's not by your power, it's not by your might, but it's by my spirit that things get done. Where do we start this week? This week we start by talking about our buddy Joshua. So we're going to be in the book of Joshua. And Joshua is going to help us refine a couple of things. All about your mindset, but he's going to help us to refine our mentality concerning our attitude towards and our approach to sin being in our life. And to just hit you with it directly, the theme is having a zero tolerance policy. A zero tolerance policy. For those of us who may tend to take that too far, let me be clear. We're going to be addressing a zero tolerance policy on sin, not people. Amen. Our issue is with the sin itself, not people. We grow in love to tolerate people because our objective is to lead them to Christ, but zero tolerance for the sin. Go to Joshua chapter 7. When you get to Joshua chapter 7, oh, hey, guess what? I just thought about something. My wife, you know, she's involved in a wedding that's coming up in May. And she's involved in a wedding, so you know what, she's got to get a dress, right? So a couple weeks ago, she says, would you mind going with me to help me pick out a dress? And now she asked me that, and I said, yeah. Then she said, let me make sure I understand your answer. Because what I'm saying is I'm going to try on dresses. Which means I don't need your face crumpled. Is she talking to me? I don't need your face crumpled up and you trying to get me to hurry up and go. If, in fact, you want to go with me and you're willing, you're going with me. She's just talking to me like I'm a little kid. You are going with me, which means you are there until I'm ready to leave. So do you want to go with me? Because she wanted me to go, and I said, yeah, I'll go. So we get in the store, and she's telling me, she says, am I taking too long? I say, I ain't saying nothing. If you in here 2 hours, we gonna try on dresses for 2 hours. So she finds a whole bunch of dresses, so she's holding them all up. She's gonna try these on. Well, she has this one dress, and she looks at it, and she's not so sure because the fabric on it. And the fabric on it, we kind of talk about it. I don't know. I just don't know if I like the way it looks. And so we kind of concluded that it kind of sort of looks like the kind of fabric that would be like on a tablecloth or a table cover. But it was pretty. And so this is going somewhere. And so she goes in there and she's trying on dresses. And you know how they come out. And so she don't want people to see, because I can't go back there. So she's like, come here. I'm like, I can't go in there, right? So she ultimately comes and there's a lady sitting in one of the chairs, right? She's waiting on her friend. So I'm kind of get as close as I can without seeing in there, right? So I'm in there, and the lady's just sitting there, and so we're talking, and I can see her smiling because we know we're going back and forth with each other. And Greta whispers, she says, she's got the tablecloth dress on. She says, she whispers, she says, I don't know. She says, does it look like a tablecloth? I say, girl, don't worry. I eat off that table. Okay. That lady was like, I'm like, hashtag happily married. In Joshua, chapter 7. Yep, she found her dress though. So, Joshua chapter 7. We're gonna bounce in and out of Joshua chapter 7, but this is gonna be our core chapter that we're working with. I'm gonna read Joshua chapter 7 primarily out of the Voice version of the Bible. We'll tip into the Amplified for some, and then the King James, the Message, so on. So I'll try to remember to tell you which version I'm in, but Joshua chapter 7, beginning in verse 1, the Voice Bible. But the Israelites acted unfaithfully in one thing. They did not allow everything from Jericho to be destroyed as God had ordered. Achan, son of Carmi, grandson of Zabdi, great-grandson of Zerah of the tribe of Judah, had carried some things away from Jericho. So the Eternal was angry at the Israelites. So the Lord is angry. And obviously, Achan has done something here very wrong. If you don't mind, take a quick peek back one chapter to Joshua chapter 6, starting in verse 17. Achan has done something wrong here, and we're going to look at Joshua chapter 6 really quick to get a clear picture of what he is guilty of. Starting in verse 17, Amplified Bible, give you a couple of quick thumbnails here. It's about Jericho, chapter 6. And if you're not familiar with it, God had given instructions that they're to walk around Jericho for 7 days in a certain type of pattern. And then on day 7, they were supposed to give a huge shout, and the walls of Jericho, boom, come falling down. They go in and take the city. Verse 17 here is where the walls have come down, and Joshua is basically given the charge for them to go in, and Joshua is just going to replay the instructions that God gave. And the city, verse 17 Amplified, and the city and all that is in it shall be devoted to the Lord for destruction. Only Rahab the harlot and all who was with her in her house shall live, because she hid the messengers whom we sent. Another kind of connector there. If you were to go back to chapter 5 or so, prior to going into Jericho, Joshua sent some spies into Jericho to kind of check it out. The spies end up staying with this person named Rahab. They call her Rahab the harlot, or promiscuous woman, or prostitute, or whatever word you want to connect with that. And she hid them from people who would have otherwise done those spies harm. So as the spies were leaving from Rahab's house, Rahab was like, hey, listen, I know you guys are going to destroy this place, but since, I kind of hid you, can you help a sister out? They're like, yo, girl, we got you. So they went back and told Joshua, and Joshua's like, okay, when we destroy the city, Rahab, we got her on lock. So that's what that means. And the city and all that is in it shall be devoted to the Lord for destruction. Only Rahab the harlot and all who are with her in her house shall live, because she hid the messengers whom we sent. But you keep yourselves from the accursed and devoted things, lest when you have devoted it to destruction, you take of the accursed thing, and so make the camp of Israel accursed and trouble it. But all the silver and gold and vessels of bronze and iron are consecrated to the Lord. They shall come into the treasury of the Lord. So Achan here disobeyed a direct instruction from God. When I think this through, I imagine that Achan considered God's instructions, but I don't think he fully thought about all the ramifications to the end. Now, I'm kind of confident that he thought about it some before he took the things he took, but I really doubt that he gave it the full weight that it deserved. Specifically, we could say this: at a minimum, we are certain that Achan, as we'll learn later, underestimated the end result of his actions. He may have thought about what God had said, but he underestimated greatly the ramifications of his actions. Verse 2. After Jericho fell, Joshua sent some men to Ai, a town near Bethaven and east of Bethel, to spy out that region of the land. They returned to Joshua with a report. The spies said, you don't need to send all the people, since there are so few defenders in Ai. An army of 2,000 to 3,000 men should be plenty. Just as Joshua sent spies into Jericho, he sent spies here into Ai. In the case of Jericho, though, the spies came back and they said, you know what? We've checked everything out, and we believe that our victory is already given to us. We believe this overtaking will be a success. And it was a success. But family, it wasn't a success because of their military might. It wasn't a success because of the great wisdom they had. It was a success because they were in agreement with and had the support of God. That's right. Now, when it comes to Ai, we have something going on a little different. In Ai, when you look at what happened, because of Achan's sin, God is no longer in support of Joshua and the rest of the children of Israel. When you think about it, the initial outcome of Ai, because of that simple fact, will be a polar opposite of what has happened at Jericho. Defeat will be the outcome. Why will defeat be the outcome? And I want you guys to say this with me. This is regarding Achan, but I want you to echo it in your own life. Why would defeat be the outcome? Because they say this with me. Because Achan touched what he should have left alone. There are times in our life that, in retrospect, we can see situations and circumstances where we touched something that we should have left alone. More to come on that in a minute. Now, when it comes to AI, the children of Israel, the spies, go in and they say, we only need 2,000 to 3,000 people. So they evaluated the situation. And in the natural, it seemed like something that was going to be easy. It seemed like a piece of cake, a cakewalk, if you will. But that's under the wrong assumption because you're thinking that God is in support of the step you're getting ready to take. Hold on one second. Technical difficulty. Y'all know how sometimes you get like a song just like rooted down deep inside your gut. That was me this one. That's why I got on my sneakers today. Because I had some Ty Tribbett playing today, and it was like, the devil thought he had me. He thought that it was over. But I was like, well, I was in the house, I was like, what? Greta say, what are you in there saying? I'm like, oh, nothing, baby. The devil thought he had me. I was in there killing it, boy. Ooh, he thought I had no more. But then somebody greater stepped in my situation. My morning has begun. He turned my morning into dancing. Woo! Ty Tribbett, boy. He was making that ugly same face too because I had him on video. I was like, you know, where they looked at AI and they thought it would be a cakewalk. The problem is they are unaware of one important piece of information. God's not with them. God's not with them. Family, as believers, if we are going to take an action, it is just bad character. It is a bad move to take an action without God, without the provider, the deliverer, the sanctifier, the healer, the protector. It's just a bad move. Turn to Psalms 37. We always, as believers, want God to direct our steps. We don't ever want to be in a position where we are doing something outside of God's direction. Psalms 37, verse 23 in the King James. It's very familiar to most of us. It's the one that says, I've never seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging bread. But starting in verse 23, it says this: the steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord. Good man, good woman. Steps of a believer, a real believer, are ordered by the Lord, and he delighteth in his way. Though he fall, he shall not be utterly cast down. For the Lord upholdeth him with his hand. I have been young, and now I'm old. Yet I have not seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging bread. The Voice version of the Bible, though. Listen to this, fam. If you are right with God, he strengthens you for your journey. The eternal will be pleased with your life. Even though you trip up, you shall not fall on your face, because God holds you by the hand. Through my whole life, young and old, I have never witnessed God forsaking those who do right, nor have I seen their children begging for crumbs. Turn to Exodus 33. Never seen the righteous forsaken. That's a benefit of being in God's will. In Exodus 33, we're going to supplement what we just read with a little something. In Exodus 33, we're going to witness Moses having an interaction with God. And this interaction is going to highlight what I think is a true believer's perspective on life. just to connect what's going on in this chapter. In the previous chapter, if you haven't read this before, you've seen it on TV. You know, Moses goes off to talk with God, and while he's away, the children of Israel get with Aaron and make a golden calf. They make a golden calf, and they're having a party and worshiping the calf, and God is unhappy about that situation. And we can just say he like funky mad. He just mad about the situation. He is so mad, he's like, you know what, Moses, these people, they tripping. Here's what I'm going to do. Why don't I just wipe them out, and I will make through you, Moses, a whole new nation of people. Now, obviously, God doesn't do that because Moses talks to him. It's like, okay, God, just please don't do that. And for the people's benefit, that didn't happen. So that's the backdrop there. Yeah, bless you. Thank you. When you get to Exodus 33, it begins at the tail end of God having dealt with all the individuals involved in all that golden calf tomfoolery. He dealt with them. He dealt with them with a plague. Now we come into chapter 33. And it begins with God telling Moses that the people can move forward. Go ahead and move forward into that land that I've promised Abraham, Isaac, and your people that you will have. And God says to him, I'm going to send an angel or my angel before you, and that angel will make sure he takes care of the angel will take care of all enemies in the land for you. But I'm not going to go myself, God says. I'm going to send my angel. This is when Moses kind of get into it, because Moses says, and this is my paraphrase, of course, God, what's the deal? You tell me to lead these people. I thought you always going to be with us, but now you're saying you're not going to go. What's up with that? Eventually, God, go to verse 34 and 33. Let me get you there. Eventually, God agrees to go with them. But here's where we slow it up a little bit, family. God agrees to go with Moses, but it is this interaction right here that really tells us what we're looking to learn in this particular account. Moses' response to God's commitment to accompanying them is revealing. It's not just revealing, it's standard setting. It's full of wisdom. It's full of insight. Why is that? In the King James, chapter 33, starting in verse 14, Moses is going to declare a position that should be in the hearts and minds of every believer. 14 says, and he, that he meaning God, said, my presence shall go with thee, and I will give thee rest. And he, meaning Moses, said unto him, if thy presence go not with me, carry us not up hence. I love that. What a mindset. What an attitude. God, if your presence don't go with us, we ain't going. Let me drop this to you, though, out of the Message Bible. Because the Message Bible depicts a clearer image of this exchange. There are other versions that I read, and they kind of say this: Lord, if you do not go with us, kind of like the King James. Lord, if you don't go with us, I ain't going. Lord, if your presence don't go with us, I'm not going. But the Message Bible, listen to this picture of a more precise exchange. Exodus 33:14, Message Bible. God said, my presence will go with you. I'll see the journey to the end. Moses said, if your presence does not take the lead here, call this trip off right now. It's almost as if Moses heard God's reply. He obviously heard God's reply because God agreed to go. But he went back to God with an extra clarification just to make sure God didn't misunderstand what he meant by, God, I want your presence to go with us. In other words, if I were to boil it down, Moses wanted God to know that it's not enough that you simply go with us. God, the only way we go is if you take the lead. The only way we go is if you direct us. The only way we go is if you lead us. The only way we go is if you take center stage. The only way we go is if we're following you. We're not walking on your side. We're following you. You are ordering our footsteps. The only way we go is if you take the lead. That's what Moses means when he talks about God's presence being with him. That's what we should mean when we talk about God's presence being with us. When we talk about God's presence being with us, it's a stance that we should adopt in life. Take some time to kind of let that roll around and kind of imagine what would happen if we were to take that stance in life. What would happen if that were our position? What would happen if that was our view? When Moses is talking about it, he's saying, God, when you go and you lead, I know I will have good success. Let's reflect that back on our life. Let's reflect that back on our life. It only involves us asking ourselves one simple question. It's just a conversation between us and God. When we're getting ready to do something, when we're getting ready to make a decision, when something is facing us, it's a simple question. It's a decision between God and us. Nobody else has to be in the room. It doesn't matter where you are. In the supermarket, in your car, at the job, on the business, in the yard. It doesn't matter. A simple conversation between you and God. Here are some examples. God, I know the job offer comes with more money. I know it comes with more money. But God, before I consider the money and the benefits and the perks, I must ask one probing question. God, is your presence in this? Because if your presence isn't in this, I can call this off right now. Is your presence in this? And by is your presence in this, God, are you in this and are you taking the lead? Are you ordering my steps? Lord, I know this child of mine has been disobedient. And I realize that putting them out of the house may be the best medicine for them at this time. But God, before I consider what they've done, before I consider the things that they've said that's hurt me to my core, I must ask one probing question. Are you in this decision? Is your presence taking the lead in what I'm getting ready to do? Because if your presence is not taking the lead, I can't put this baby out my house. Father, I know you know that I care for this man. I know you know how much I care for him. And you know what, God? I know I've already agreed to marry him. But God, before I consider my feelings, before I consider my biological clock, before I consider what people might say, before I walk down that aisle, I have to ask myself one probing question. God, is your presence in this? Is your presence in this? Because if your presence is not in this, if you are not leading the way, God, I got to call this thing off right now. The same goes with men. God, you know how I feel about her. You know that I care. But God, before I make this move based on my emotions, before I take this thing further, I got to ask one probing question. God, are you in this? Because God, if your presence isn't taking the lead, I need to cool my jets. I need to back off. It can be anything generically in our life. Anything, whatever it is. God, I know my family wants me to do that. Whatever that is. I know everybody that I come across tells me that it is the right move to make. Whatever that move is. But God, before I consider all the advice of others, even before I consider what's going on in my own head, I got to ask a simple probing question. God, are you in this? Are you, God, going to take the lead? Because if you're not taking the lead, I don't care what they say about it. I don't care what they believe I should do. I don't care how I even feel about it personally. If you're not going to take the lead, God, I got to call this thing off right now. That is the mindset of a believer. If you want to ball that up into a motto for your life, we can say it as simple as this. If God ain't in it, I ain't with it. Say that with me. You ain't got to shout it. It can be calm. Say, if God ain't in it, I ain't with it. When you think about Moses and his interaction with God there in Exodus 33, that's what he's saying. God, if your presence don't go before us and take the lead here, don't take us up from hence. Go back to Joshua chapter 7. That is the motto and the mindset we should all have. It's the mindset that Moses had, and I'm certain that it's the mindset Joshua has. Unfortunately, Joshua is unaware that at this moment, God is not involved in leading the charge on Ai. Why? Because Achan has sinned against God. When you think about Joshua, he is unaware, very unaware of one grave reality. He is about to attempt to go and take over a town without the support of his almighty protector. Tell me if this rings true to you. When you think about God operating in our lives, God's presence, which we can say is his moving in situations, circumstances, and conditions to bring a favorable outcome on our behalf, his presence. When you think about his presence, we don't ever want to be in a position to where we're doing something and God is not a co-laborer in our task. Joshua and others will soon learn one important lesson, which we should all take note. And write this down if you will. The important lesson is this, that they're getting ready to learn. God can be present. God can be present, but while he is present, you can still fail to abide in the fruits of his presence. God can be present, but even though he's present, you can still fail to abide in the fruits of his presence. God is everywhere. When we go deeper into this account, we will find he's there observing. So he is there with Joshua because Joshua is outside of his will. He's not going to abide on this first attempt to capture AI. He's not going to abide in the fruits of God's presence. Let's go one more verse, and then we'll call it for today. And then we'll pick up next time. Verse 4 in the Voice version of the Bible, Joshua chapter 7. So Joshua sent about 3,000 soldiers to Ai. Remember, they said, we don't need many. They don't have a lot of defenders. Just send 2,000 to 3,000 people. That should be more than enough. So Joshua sent about 3,000 soldiers to Ai, but they were easily repulsed by the defenders, who killed 36 of them and pursued them from the gate even to the descent towards Shebarim. When the Israelites heard their soldiers had been defeated, their courage melted away like water. Then Joshua and the elders of Israel tore their robes and fell to the dirt in front of the covenant of the chest of the Eternal, putting dust on their heads and remaining there until the evening. They felt the defeat. They felt the defeat, and upon defeat, the Bible says, all the people began to fear. Not only did the people begin to fear, but now here are Joshua and the elders falling down basically before God, putting ashes and dirt on their face and saying, God, we don't understand. Weeping and crying before him. What we'll pick up next time is that God is getting ready to engage Joshua and simply explain to Joshua, or with a simple statement, tell Joshua why he failed. Why did you fail? Joshua, you failed because Israel has sinned against God. We'll pick up there next time.
We pray that today's message was a blessing to you. If you would like to help us further expand the vision, simply text the word GIVE-RTM to the number 41444 or visit us online at www.revealingtruth.org. Now remember, Jesus loves you.